Hello and welcome to Beauty and the Bi. I'm the beauty, allegedly.
And I'm the bi, allegedly.
If you're here, it's because you care about girls, gays, the entertainment industry, and your role in it, as well as your identity. I'm Christiana, and I'm a stand-up comedian, and I baked some croissants this morning.
My name is Cody, and I woke up with one sock on this morning.
It seems tame.
It wasn't my sock.
Of course not.
And it wasn't on my foot.
Of course it wasn't. Okay, great. Cody, how was your week?
It's been good. It's been very busy, a lot going on, but I went out last night and I had fun and I didn't black out this time, so that's always a win. Right?
Sounds like a win.
Yeah.
Sounds like a win-win.
Yeah, how's your weekend going?
Well, our religious liberties are under attack again.
Oh, do tell.
So, not necessarily even our right to exist. It's really the religious part of America that's under attack right now.
They're so marginalized.
They're just so encumbered. Our current administration has issued yet another executive order, which I may note does not need Congress's approval to go into effect, which is an interesting clause. The most recent of these is, well, first let me just say full disclosure, the coverage that we're going to be discussing right now is from NPR. And full disclosure, Cody, do you know what NPR is?
No.
Okay, great. Section 1, policy. It shall be the policy of the executive branch to vigorously enforce federal law's robust protections for religious freedom. Okay, so robust protections for religious freedom. What does that mean? What are we about to hear here? We're going to hear a breakdown of what is essentially a reinvigoration, or perhaps even a
can I be racist because I love Jesus?
Yes.
That's what we're looking for here.
I think there are a lot of people that are concerned about the role that religion has played in the past in giving them privilege, and they're worried that they might have that privilege taken away. So they're worried that they don't necessarily get to use their religious beliefs to bully people. And this particular executive order seeks to reaffirm them that, don't worry, yes, they still can. So here's a phrase that you're going to see every single time religious liberties come into play. The founders envisioned a nation, capital N, in which religious voices and views were integral to a vibrant public square. I mean, like, can you imagine that public square? If there's a public square where people are talking about religious freedoms, like, that's like the town idiot just like yelling.
It's usually a crowd of people with white hoods and a burning cross.
Right. So this is not to say at all that religious people are inherently stupid, nothing like that. But this particular executive order seems to seek especially to make people who make people feel bad feel good. So this continues on and says, in which religious people and institutions were free to practice their faith without fear of discrimination or retaliation by the federal government. This sentence alone already suggests that people of a very particular religious persuasion were feeling discriminated against or retaliated to by the government. I don't think that at this time in our country's history, the religious left or the religious right, let me take that again. I don't think that at this time in our country's history, it's the religious right that are being discriminated against. For that reason, the United States Constitution enshrines and protects the fundamental right. Notice some of the words they're using here. Fundamental. Constitution enshrines. That word, shrine, is a religious iconography already. And it protects the fundamental right to religious liberty as Americans' first freedom. Federal law protects the freedom of Americans and their organizations to exercise religion and participate fully in civic life without undue interference by the federal government. The executive branch will honor and enforce those protections. So the question here, what does this mean to you guys? The question here is, are you allowed to go to a cake shop and get a cake that's in the shape of a wiener without infringing on someone else's rights?
Have you been following me?
So basically, the questions that are at hand here. Ultimately, as NPR points out, this is mostly a symbolic gesture. There's nobody's freedom to believe in what they want is currently under fire at a federal level. That's just not something that we're worried about at this point. You've already been granted the freedom to believe whatever you want. You will never be granted the freedom to discriminate against people and use religion as an excuse to do so.
And we even talked about how this really, like, just hearing all those like 4-syllable words is like over my head. But listening to all of this, we're just kind of like, does this even really do anything like in a physical, like actual law-abiding sense? Like, how do you enforce this? How do you even, or how do you, I should say, I guess, not enforce it? Because it doesn't really do anything. It's just kind of like, it's kind of just, you know, the right's way of showing that they're like, yes, you can be racist because of your religion, or you can be homophobic because of your religion, except that when it like comes down to the nitty-gritty in, you know, other federal laws and protections that are in place, you really can't.
Right.
So it's kind of just like a,
I mean, it's just as you're saying, like the difference here is that when it comes to the government's ability to act on this, you are perfectly welcome to have awful, racist, prejudiced, sexist, you know, like homophobic thoughts. You are allowed to have those thoughts, you're allowed to have those feelings. I sure hope you don't, but you're welcome to them. What the government should be legislating against is acting on those, especially when it comes to hiring decisions and where you're choosing to spend your money. It's your call. You can choose to go to another bakery if you don't like that someone isn't willing to make a cake for you. That said, you can't choose not to hire someone because they're gay.
exactly.
So ultimately, what's actually really interesting about this, and what I want to talk about before we bring on our guest, is that interestingly, in 1993, there was a Religious Freedom Restoration Act, which actually sounds strangely very much like something the Republicans would put forward, but it was signed but it was signed by President Bill Clinton. So that's kind of the kicker there. It was signed in order to reestablish a standard that better protects all Americans of all faiths in the exercise of their religion, and it was upheld in 2006. So this really isn't something that's been called into question before. I really don't feel that religious liberties are under attack. I feel that the people who already have religious liberties and freedoms feel that they are under attack because other people are coming forward and saying that what they believe is just as important as the current most popular religion, which is Christianity.
It just goes back to that whole, you know, privileged people thinking that like your rights are a pie and everyone gets like a certain percentage of the slice, so it feels like you're the one under attack when, like, you know, your slice of the pie gets smaller, but that's
Everyone
not
gets
that's
the same slice now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not even that there's like this, you know, that there's a limit to who gets like we have to like allocate like who gets what like rights or whatever. It's like, no, there's plenty of.
We can all have pie. We can all have
a whole pie to ourselves.
A lot of pie.
There's no reason for any limiting factor to the personal freedoms that we should all be allowed, I think. And I've used this analogy before in you know, the constant struggle of fighting white men on Facebook threads. But, you know, it's like, you know, because, you know, a lot of people when they're, you know, they feel under attack, they're acting like children, and they're acting like children that are in a sandbox and they have all the nice toys, and then they get really mad that the one kid who doesn't have nice toys gets something nice, and it's like, well, I don't have that toy, and I want it.
Get that.
Why is
it's not equality if I don't get that toy.
Exactly.
So there are definitely some very difficult. I think there's just genuinely a feeling that they shouldn't have to give up in order to be equal. It should be that we're bringing everyone up to the same standard, which I understand that feeling, but having privilege just by nature means that you are going to have to sacrifice in order a little bit, not everything, but you're going to have to sacrifice a little in order for others to have the same standard of living that you have.
But it's also like, don't you want to be fair? Like, don't you want? I don't know. I wouldn't feel good about having advantages. I mean, like, I don't, but also, like, we're not playing into like white guilt and stuff like that. But but still, like, I know that there are things that obviously, like, I very much so benefit from, but I don't want to. I don't want to benefit from them necessarily. Like, I recognize I do, but
and I mean that's why we work.
I want to win. I want something because I earned it, because I worked hard for it, not because the system decided that people with our skin tone should have things. Exactly. Right.
Then last thing that's important to remember about this particular executive order is that it applies at a federal level. But the Supreme Court actually ruled that states, specifically the Religious Freedom Act that Bill Clinton signed, doesn't apply to states, and some states tried to pass their own versions of it as a result. So, who can we think of that might have tried to pass something similar to the Religious Freedom Restoration Act? Ah, yes.
Mike Pence.
Governor Pence from Indiana passed a version in 2015 of a very similar act to what we're seeing with exactly this religious liberty executive order. So I kind of think there's a real good chance that this is actually just Mike Pence like heavily breathing into Trump's ear.
Oh, definitely.
And that's what happens when you really don't have political experience, is that you're going to be led around by people who do. Mm-hmm. So ultimately, what you guys want to keep an eye out for here is that this particular order could lead on a state level, not on its own directly, but on a state level, to allow private businesses like florists, like caterers, like cake designers, etc. They can say that they don't want to work with people. They don't want to work with people who are LGBTQ. If their personal beliefs actually just oppose that. So they would be allowed to. So keep an eye out. Pence has signed on this before. This is it's not in the distant past either. This was less than 2 years ago. So please keep an eye on this. Up next, we chat with Kevin Yee about parody, Broadway, being in a boy band, and many other things. In addition, you guys should meet Galway.
I'm dog sitting this weekend, and I don't own a dog, so it's been a great weekend.
Owns their friend, Cody.
Well, apparently not. There she goes. But yeah, she's gonna be making some appearances. We're gonna just Chelsea Handler it today and let her run around.
Mm-hmm. See you soon. Welcome back, guys, and welcome Kevin Yee to the show, a musical artist and comedian whose work has been featured on Out, Gaily Grind, The Huffington Post, The Guardian, just to name a few, who's recently hosted several Pride festivals, actually, Boston, Brooklyn, Washington, San Diego, and who very, very recently joined me on my stand-up and storytelling show, Personally Speaking. Welcome, Kevin.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for joining. How's your week been? So let's start off.
Oh my goodness, the week was crazy. We were talking about Mercury was in retrograde, and so everything was really weird, and I was feeling... Do you feel more I feel more emotional, although I'm coming off of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But last night...
Let the rain wash away.
Yeah, it's raining
like Hillary
today.
Duff says.
As she says.
Oh my gosh.
Exactly.
Let the rain fall down. Is that the song?
Yes,
That's the one.
Thank you.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
Do you remember, what's her the Lizzie
The
McGuire
Lizzie McGuire
movie?
movie.
Hey now, this is
Oscar-winning
what
film of the
dreams are
year.
made of.
Getting emotional.
That was such a good movie.
That's so funny with all the Mercury retrograde stuff is because I don't particularly buy into it. And so I say as I have a Leo
I'm not
tattoo.
a subscriber.
I say as I have a Leo tattoo.
I'm not a subscriber.
But I'll see shit that's like your sign as condiments, and I get pissed because I'm like, I'm not ketchup. But then I'll see other things that's like things Leos are afraid of. I'm like, oh, fuck, they're reading me right now. This is so true. So I don't know where I level on this.
I like especially, I feel like I jump in to astrology whenever I am just roasted.
Yeah.
Anytime they're like, yeah, Libra is the friend who's going to leave you at the party. And I'm like, yeah, I get tired.
You
That's
hella
totally
left
me.
us at a party
Yep.
2 weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
At a
The
birthday
horoscopes
party.
I have been
No.
seen and burned.
Yeah, wow. Well, now we have to believe in it because
No,
we have
yeah.
examples of it.
You just said that. I'm like, you literally left us at DJ's birthday party 2 weeks ago. You were the first one gone.
Yeah, I did leave you guys because you all joined in. It was, guys, please forgive me for this moment, for letting myself indulge. But I left because the entire, I think 5 or 6 of my friends jumped on a couch together, insisted that they all wanted to take a photo together, like friends. And I was like, great. And so I joined them on the couch, and they said, no, it's for our fans. They want to see us like the Friends couch. And I was like, excuse me?
You were not included.
Because
I was
it's all
like,
6 of them live together.
Yeah.
And
So it's their-
it's our
But
friend
then
Kenny.
can't they just do that all the time? Can't they just take
Exactly.
pictures of themselves all the time and not exclude their guests?
This is a call out.
We're
podcast.
watching you. Yeah, exactly.
This just turns into the roast
just
of our friends.
outrage.
You know what? Let's just
Burn
go
it.
through Facebook. Okay, Dylan. Well,
All right,
Dylan,
get out
that
your
one
phones,
time. I'm sure they're very nice people, but
They're fantastic. I absolutely adore them.
but you knew the night was over when you were not
has
included.
gotten
It's like,
to
where's
their
Christiana?
head.
They're like, she did the Irish goodbye.
What is their fame?
like-
Are they on social media? People know that
So
they're the.
yes, one of the friends in the house is quite popular on YouTube,
amazing.
and so they've developed a following that way. And now that he lives in a house with several other people, everybody has kind of become part of the show.
Oh my
And so
goodness.
everybody loves that. Like speaking both as a Libra and also as a person working in the entertainment industry, I love attention. That's not even the correct word. Like I survive on attention. I like my fuel tank must be at least 75% full in order to feel human. So it's sort of like a bug that seems to have been caught in the house, and everybody's really excited and they want to participate, which I love. But then taking that and turning it into something that's exclusionary makes me feel like,
Right.
We're
let's
like,
be careful about this. Like it's
But you know
not
where
a
they
matter of-
live.
Yeah, I was like,
So you
I
can
have
just
their
like
address.
peer in the
So,
window
like,
and like you
guys,
can
how
appear in
can
every
I-
episode.
I can be in every episode. I'll be a prop.
I would be lying if I didn't say that like when I got like a new tattoo and then like I went to their house and like Kenny like filmed it and was asking about it. And then when that vlog came out the next week, I scrolled through that shit and I just was like, there I
Waited for
am.
the tattoo.
And there's my 30 seconds and
And
Share
out.
on Facebook, share on Twitter, Snapchat about it.
And
I'm like, there
So
I
many
am
likes.
and I'm done.
You can't be successful with just talent anymore.
yeah, no, you have to have
Single
a persona,
tier
a narrative.
Market yourself.
Single tier. No, but it's true. Like I even
from
talked to like a
experience.
manager once, a comedy manager, and it was like they were pretty big too, and
Yeah.
they deal with a lot of big clients, and they looked at my stuff. Well, they didn't even look at my stuff. They were like, "You don't have enough followers."
Really?
So it's actually like infiltrated the real
Kills me.
legit.
Yeah, I hear people put it on
Part-
like the back of their headshots and stuff, like
Yeah.
how many Instagram
Yeah.
followers and Twitter followers they have.
But you can fake it all.
yeah.
You can buy
buy 'em, no
views
problem.
and
Yeah,
likes
yeah, you
and all of that. And
I've bought all 500 of my followers.
oh my gosh.
Every single one of them.
Even your mom,
Excuse me,
you're like, here's a
400.
dollar.
Mom, follow
Mom,
me.
follow me.
And she's like,
Like, put a $5 down, sweetheart. But yeah, so okay, so first of all, you have already
Yes.
started developing a career in the comedy community. Tell us a little bit about that, Kevin.
Sure, sure. Well, I write comedy songs, and they're pop songs because I was originally a pop singer when I was a teenager. I was,
Yes.
as you guys
Yes.
know,
You
I was
can hear
in a
more about
band.
that on my show.
Yes,
it's
personally
so
speaking.
good. I was honestly sold on that set the second you were, what was the guy's in the crowd's name? David?
Dave.
Oh
Dave.
yeah.
The second you did your like, Dave, hey Dave, you did a body roll, and I literally, I
Goes
was like,
right
I'm
into
gonna
a body
fucking
roll,
love
and it
this
was
set.
phenomenal.
I was like, I'm gonna enjoy this.
Well, they
And I
just talked
did.
about two straight guys were just talking about
Masturbating
masturbation and
together.
I wanted to dance in celebration of
Yeah,
their.
you followed that up, and you're like, Dave, if you're out there.
Hello.
Yeah. Because you know,
but yeah.
straight guys, they always think that they can outgross the gays.
Yeah.
And I'm like, honey, let me tell you.
Let's begin.
I'll just.
Oh, now we're starting?
I'm like, our
You guys
culture
are
is built
done?
upon like vulgar sex.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
you're
Yeah.
not gonna win.
I'm gonna win this
It's
one. And it's interesting because it really is more about vulgar sex than about vulgarizing people, or like
Yeah,
it's
it
less.
has to be sexual related.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure I just made up a word and saying vulgarizing, but
I
but
like
I mean,
that word.
we can make it.
Hashtag vulgarizing. It's gonna go viral.
The title of this is gonna be like Vulgarizing Episode 4
Yes.
with Kevin Yee.
That's actually.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
But yeah, so okay, so tell us a little bit
Yeah, yeah.
more.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, how'd you actually? Okay, did you come
So-
into comedy song specifically by way of Broadway?
Broadway was a part of like the performance aspect of it, but it really came from writing pop songs. And then I was a Broadway. Well, I did musicals as a kid too, so I kind of like went in and out. I was a dancer when I was a kid as well. So, and then when I was 15, I got into a boy band, and that's the story that I tell.
You were 15.
I was
in that
15.
We were looking at the picture of it earlier.
It could be between like 15 and 18.
Okay. Oh,
So-
was it for that long?
Yeah, I was there for like 3 years.
Wow.
But through like being in that band, I learned how to write music. I learned how to produce music.
Nice.
And then out of it, I mean, it was a terrible experience, as you
as we heard
as
on
you heard
Personal
on the
Speaking.
podcast, which you need to go check out. And then after that, I was just like this failed boy band member at the age of 18, and I was just I went home, but I had learned all these skills, and I really loved writing music and loved producing. But through that experience, because a big part of it was like I was gay, and so they were trying to change who I was. I wasn't out of the closet, but they thought that I was gay, and they were trying to change who I was. So it taught me that the thought had been put into my head that I could not be a successful pop singer if I was a gay man. And I decided to come out of the closet. So that was like one of those things where I was like, I'm coming out of the closet and I'm giving up that career because I can't do both. I've been taught that by living that life for 3 years. But that passion was always there.
Yeah.
But then I went back to musical theater and went and had a Broadway career, et cetera, et cetera. But that whole time I was writing music and pop, usually like pop boy band songs,
Sure.
but when I think about it, I'm like, they're so cheesy because I hadn't lived that life yet. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
just like emulating what I heard, like, oh, my heart is broken, and like, I love you forever, and yada yada yada. But I hadn't had that experience, right?
Pop by necessity. You have to express these exaggerated emotions, and it's
And it has to be very broad and
Right.
non-specific.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so
It
it
has to
appeals
be.
to everyone.
Exactly, and that's part of the fun of it, though. That allows you to kind of lean
Oh
in.
yeah, like I shake
Yeah.
my damn ass to NSYNC like any given day. But
Yeah.
Any given day. But yeah, it sounds like that definitely, like jumping into that first. It sounds like by jumping in to pop and then to Broadway, it sounds like your musical experience was really ultimately driven by like really broadly expressing your emotions. Not
Right.
even broadly, but just joyously and passionately, rather than even if you're singing about how your heart is broken, it's still an upbeat poppy song.
Yeah.
So does that I assume that influenced the music that you're making now, and to kind of jump
Yeah.
in with comedy.
Well, yeah, because I realized like, and it turned into trying to discover what my voice was, because I realized that during the boy band years, I had completely, if I had ever had a voice up until 15, I'd completely lost it because I had had to suppress who I was. So I didn't even know what I was talking about. I knew that I was gay, I knew that I came out of the closet, but I didn't know what my voice was. And it's a really boring story, but how it started was my friend was really annoyed by my pop songs. He's like, they're all about love and that's not you, and like, you should write about something else. And so he was like, you should write a song about like a piece of fruit. And I was like, okay. And so then I wrote the song Orange.
No
And it's
way.
it's my first comedy song like 15 years ago that I ever wrote. And from then on, I was like, and I still kept writing pop songs too, but I was like, I feel like this is more my voice. This is more of an interesting expression of who I am. I'm a little bit more sarcastic than just like, and then YouTube happened. So then I could make music videos and express myself on YouTube and like kind of tell stories that way. And it was kind of like the full picture of like the visuals and the music. But then I was doing like Broadway shows for like a decade, and just writing these songs, and some of the videos hit big and then some of them didn't, and it was just like an exploration. And then how I got into comedy was I was tired. I was on Broadway,
That
I'm exhausted.
is my reason for anything. It's just like, why did you do that? I was tired. Cody, you slept 12 hours. I was tired.
I'm tired, I'm done. But I was doing, like, I did a good decade of Broadway musicals, 8 shows a week, and like,
wow.
Like it is a dream, and it was a really great experience.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
And so I don't want to like downplay that, like, oh, I'm so.
It was such a job, such a 9 to 5.
life. Yeah, but it really was like taxing on my body because I did these big dance shows. I did
sure.
Mary Poppins and Wicked and Mamma Mia, and they were all like dance shows. And I was young when I did them. I was like 20, 19, 20, and then but I was like approaching 30, which is not old. I'm not saying that's old.
30s
but like,
are honestly your new 20s. I'm
right.
really excited to actually get into my 30s because hopefully by then I have money and I have a nice house.
Right.
And I can do what the fuck I want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel in general millennials are all really excited to be like in their 30s because we have this idea of like there's going to be stability there. There's
That's
something
exactly
you
what it is.
arrive at. And I think it's a valuable idea. I think getting excited about rather than shaming aging is just like, oh, you'll never be as good as you were in your 20s. Like, I expect to be a great 30-something. I think it's going to be a fun time.
And you
to
even
be.
look too at like a lot of like I'm not gonna say it because there's a lot of like young popular kids out like right now. You mean like a lot, an overwhelming amount. But there's also those people that are like really seasoned and really into the careers who are still really big, like YouTubers like Grace Helbig and Hannah Hart and Mamie Hart. They're all like 30, approaching 30 at least, and they even are like, yeah, like we love our 30s. Like
they're solid.
life's great.
Yeah.
Like it's better than like I was crying into a bottle of gin in my 20s. So
Yeah, exactly. You know more about yourself, what you want. I think
and
we're
that's
all
what made me
definitely
think. I was
looking
like,
to that.
wow, that's so true. Especially because we come to the age too that like millennials are like saying no largely to like marriage and children. So
Yeah, and so
That's nice.
which
Less
means that
responsibility.
well, I was just
Yeah.
gonna say it really means that you've saved more by that point, and you're obviously you're not like doubling your income, but you've saved more, and so if you're not going to be spending on a child or
you're
on
only
anything
feeding
other
your
than-
own mouth.
Exactly. So it's definitely an opportunity for that, but. I'm
Well, you
interested
guys
to
are
know.
wrong.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, thank you. All right, well, you know
That's
what?
the
That's
show.
the end of the show. We're done. We're good. Okay. That's a wrap. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Nice try. The 30s suck. No, no, but I think it is true.
Tell
Like
us what your experience has been out there.
Yeah, you become I think you something in you changes at
Yeah.
30, and it really was 30 for me.
Yeah.
Like I did one final show. I was like, I'm probably around 27, 28. I'd also hit a ceiling on Broadway where I was like, I'm an Asian homosexual, and like I'm kind of smaller, so I know even if I was Asian, like I'm not a leading man, type-wise, physically wise, on what Broadway considers
Typically.
a typical leading man, and vocally I'm a pop singer, so I'm not gonna be like, I don't have this booming voice, and I just was like, I think I've gone as far as I can, and I was just seeing myself at like 40 and 50 being this Asian chorus boy, and I was like, and that feeling of wanting to tell my what?
Good memoir title.
Write that down. And then also I was getting tireder, and also I felt like it was now or never, and also the feeling of suppressing my voice and never really knowing who I was, and not really being able to tell my story, and not really having it be clear to myself who I was bubbling to the surface. So one of the biggest things was I was a chorus boy, and so the last job I did was age 29 to 30 on that dot. It was at the Stratford Shakespeare Festival.
Wow.
And I finally played a lead. I played Linus in You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. And I was like, this will be a great, thermometer. Is that what you go?
Yeah.
Like to see if like this is actually what I want. Because you're like, well, maybe if I live somewhere else, I'll be better. Or maybe if I like do this or this.
I change this thing, this
yeah.
one variable.
Yeah. So I was like, well, maybe if I'm a lead, then it'll be better. And I did that contract, and I was miserable. And it had nothing to do with the show or anyone that I was working with. I was just like, I'm not my full potential doing this, and I'm now realizing that. And when I looked at my work with my songs, I was like, I've been doing this now for, at that point, 11 years? I'm trying to do the math in my head. I'm Asian, I should be better at that. Okay. Just threw that out there, that's fine. You can edit that out.
We won't.
We won't at all.
Thanks so much for watching, but don't leave yet. Join us next time, and we're going to continue our conversation with Kevin Yee, who we enjoyed talking to that much. We're also going to play a quick and beautiful round of top, bottom, kill. See you next time.